It was 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday when a golf cart with HOA enforcement patrol painted on the side came screeching to a halt in front of my house. Two men in matching khaki vests and mirrored sunglasses jumped out like they were raiding a compound. One had a digital clipboard, the other was holding zip ties. My 12-year-old daughter Madison had just gotten off the school bus and was still eating her after-school snack when they started yelling at her to cease unauthorized chalk activity on our own driveway. Before I could even get outside, they had brought out a portable power washer and were destroying her pastel rainbow masterpiece while she stood there crying. By 3:20 p.m., I had reviewed the Ring camera footage from multiple angles. By 3:21 p.m., I was already in my garage, pulling out a locked footlocker that I hadn't opened in years. The label read "Seal gear for emergencies only." This definitely qualified as an emergency. My name is Cal Whitmore, and after 22 years as a Navy SEAL, I had moved to Pine Ridge Estates specifically to live a quiet life. These days, my biggest thrill was supposed to be perfecting my bonsai tree collection and maybe grilling on weekends. I chose this sleepy suburb in Stonebridge County because absolutely nothing ever happened here. The most excitement we usually got was when someone's recycling bin blew over during a storm. Unfortunately, I hadn't counted on Claudette Kingsley. She was the president of the Pine Ridge HOA and had given herself the title of Neighborhood Integrity Officer. With her platinum blonde bob that never moved even in hurricane-force winds, a custom leather holster for her clipboard, and a 5-car garage that contained nothing but color-coordinated beige sedans, Claudette ruled our cul-de-sac like she was running a small dictatorship. She had business cards that said protecting property values one violation at a time. My crime. I had allowed my daughter to draw whimsical chalk unicorns on our driveway. Apparently, this was a violation of subsection 12.4 of the Community Aesthetic Standards, which I later discovered Claudette had written herself just 3 days earlier. The escalation started immediately after the chalk incident. The next morning, I found 3 violation notices taped to my door. The first one said driveway art must conform to approved neutral tones only. The second claimed I had unauthorized flora detected in bonsai arrangement, which was ridiculous since bonsai trees are literally just small trees. The third notice, and this one really got me, said my American flag exceeded the HOA flagpole height maximum of 2.5 feet. I had to read that one 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Then came the patrols. Claudette had recruited 2 local CrossFit enthusiasts who spent their days between gym sessions driving around in that golf cart. They would circle my house twice daily, stopping to inspect the color of my mulch and literally sniffing the air for what they called unauthorized grilling smells. They took photos of my garbage cans if they were visible from the street for more than 2 hours after pickup. They measured the height of my grass with an actual ruler. One evening, I discovered Claudette had installed a motion-activated security camera on a public lamppost that pointed directly into my backyard. When I asked her about it, she said with a sickeningly sweet voice that it was for community safety and if I had nothing to hide, I had nothing to worry about. The camera mysteriously stopped working after a well-placed tennis ball found its way into the lens at 2 a.m., but I wouldn't know anything about that. The assault on Madison had been Claudette's biggest power play yet. She had declared the chalk drawing graffiti adjacent behavior and a gateway to property defacement. Her 2 enforcers, emboldened by a rulebook they had apparently written during their lunch break at the gym, had actually put their hands on my daughter's shoulders to move her away from the driveway while they destroyed her art. They claimed they were authorized to detain anyone engaged in HOA violations on community property, even though the driveway was clearly part of my personal property. After reviewing the footage and calming Madison down, I didn't yell or make threats. I didn't post anything on Facebook or Nextdoor. Instead, I made a few phone calls to some old friends who owed me favors. By Friday afternoon, 3 retired JAG lawyers, 2 local journalists, a federal postal inspector who had some interesting stories about mail tampering, and a private investigator had all gathered in my garage. We sat around my workbench, drinking coffee from my old Navy mugs, and reviewing HOA bylaws like we were planning a military operation. What we discovered was fascinating. First, HOA enforcers have absolutely no legal authority to detain anyone, anywhere, for any reason. What they did to Madison technically qualified as false imprisonment and assault on a minor. Second, installing HOA surveillance equipment on public utilities without proper permits was completely illegal and violated multiple privacy laws. Third, and this was the really interesting part, The rulebook they had been citing and using to issue fines had never been properly filed with the county, making every single fine they had collected potentially fraudulent. But wait, it got better. The pressure washer they used to destroy Madison's chalk art? It had been purchased with HOA funds, which meant every resident had technically paid for the destruction of a child's unicorn drawing. The receipts showed it cost $800 and was listed as emergency equipment. My private investigator friend also discovered that 4 of Claudette's 5 beige sedans were registered to the HOA as community emergency response vehicles, even though she was the only one who drove them. By Sunday evening, I had compiled everything into a 40-page packet with color-coded tabs and appendices. I filed it with the county courthouse first thing Monday morning, and made sure to carbon copy the local news stations, the state attorney general's office, the Better Business Bureau, and yes, I even posted it on the Nextdoor app with the title urgent information every Pine Ridge resident needs to know. Monday morning at 7 a.m., the HOA golf cart was mysteriously towed from Claudette's driveway. The tow truck driver said he had received an anonymous tip about an illegally modified vehicle being used to impersonate law enforcement. By Wednesday, both enforcers had resigned after being served with civil subpoenas. One of them posted on Facebook saying, "I didn't sign up to be part of some suburban militia. I just wanted free gym membership." Apparently, Claudette had been paying them in CrossFit passes. Claudette, showing the kind of determination that would be admirable if it wasn't so misguided, called an emergency HOA meeting for Thursday night to defend her zero-tolerance policy on property aesthetics. She sent out an email blast saying that weak enforcement leads to weak property values and that she would present evidence of the chaos that would ensue without strict rules. Unfortunately for her, she didn't realize the meeting location had been moved from the community center to my front lawn. How did the location get changed? Well, it turns out when you don't properly file your HOA documents with the county, any homeowner can call a counter meeting with proper notice. I had sent out the notice Tuesday morning, and made sure to mention there would be free pizza and drinks for all attendees. Over 80 neighbors showed up Thursday evening, many carrying their own violation notices, receipts for bogus fines, and some even brought chalk. 3 different people were live streaming on Facebook, and a local news crew had set up near my Japanese maple tree. I had arranged folding chairs in neat rows and set up a small podium made from sawhorses and plywood. Madison had drawn a fresh rainbow unicorn on the driveway just for the occasion, this time adding an American flag cape to it. The meeting started at exactly 7 p.m. I stood at my makeshift podium, wearing my most boring polo shirt and khakis to look as suburban as possible, and calmly presented each violation of law and HOA protocol with the precision of a military briefing. I had PowerPoint slides showing the financial irregularities, video evidence of the trespassing incidents, and testimonials from 17 neighbors about harassment and intimidation. The crowd gasped when I showed the ring footage of Claudette sneaking into backyards at night with a ruler to measure decorative garden gnome heights. When I showed the video of Madison being grabbed and her chalk art being destroyed, several parents in the crowd started shouting. One mother yelled that Claudette had made her daughter cry over a pink flamingo pool float that was visible from the street. Another resident revealed that Claudette had tried to fine him $300 for having the wrong shade of beige on his mailbox post. The county commissioner, who I had personally invited, stood up and declared the Pine Ridge HOA to be in complete dereliction of procedural transparency. The sheriff's deputy who had accompanied him walked up to Claudette, who was mid-bite into a chocolate scone from the refreshment table I had set up, and served her with a cease and desist order. She tried to argue that she had immunity as HOA president, but the deputy just shook his head and told her that's not how any of this works. Madison, wearing her best unicorn t-shirt for the occasion, walked to the center of the lawn with a box of chalk. She looked Claudette directly in the eye and began redrawing her rainbow unicorn on the sidewalk while everyone cheered. This time, she added sunglasses to the unicorn and wrote Freedom Horse underneath it in red, white, and blue letters. Someone started a slow clap that built into thunderous applause. The county commissioner announced that there would be a full audit of the HOA's finances and that all fines collected under the invalid bylaws would need to be refunded with interest. The total came to over $47,000. Claudette's face went from red to purple to a shade of white I didn't know was possible for a living person. She started babbling about property values and aesthetic standards, but no one was listening anymore. The news crew interviewed Madison, who said with perfect 12-year-old honesty that she just wanted to draw unicorns and didn't understand why adults had to make everything so complicated. The reporter then turned to Claudette for comment, but she was being escorted away by her husband, who had shown up looking mortified and kept apologizing to everyone within earshot. The vote to remove Claudette from her position was unanimous except for one vote, which was Claudette herself, though there was some debate about whether she was even allowed to vote given the circumstances. The county commissioner declared her permanently banned from holding any HOA position in the state due to what he called egregious governance malpractice and misappropriation of community funds. When the sheriff's deputy read out the list of potential criminal charges including fraud, false imprisonment, and harassment of a minor, Claudette fainted right onto my freshly fertilized lawn. The maximum penalties added up to 12 years in prison and over $200,000 in fines. As the paramedics loaded her onto a stretcher, she kept mumbling about her beige sedans and asking who would maintain the community standards.